Welcome back to Season 3 of ASD Market Week's podcast, Let's Talk a Little Shop. With your host, me, Emilie Lewis. We're going to tackle the hard subjects. So buckle up and get ready for Season 3. We're going to have a lot of fun. All right, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk a Little Shop, ASD Market Week's podcast. So today I am beyond excited, and for personal reasons, because this woman on the podcast today is literally one of my favorite humans. Like, she is an absolute boss, and in the best sense, because she's kind, she's caring, she has built a company all about being truthful and open and honest and kind and caring, but getting the job done. So I am excited to welcome Jamie Grossman, who is the founder of PRTNR Recruiting, to the podcast today. So welcome, Jamie.
Thank you. That's such a nice introduction. I'm going to cry. It was so I feel like I could now do anything. But you are the boss lady, in all honesty. Totally motivate me and inspire me. All the things that you are doing, the creativity and staying in the game,
I'm only where I am because this lady has put me into some of those roles. So those that are in our audience that don't know what PRTNR Recruiting is, give us your best elevator pitch.
Best elevator pitch. PRTNR Recruiting is a recruiting agency specializing in beauty and fashion, lifestyle, anything consumer lifestyle. We only do full-time placements, everything soup to nuts, basically, but not on the freelance side. So we take all of our clients and really give them a real retained service. And so what that would entail is everything from learning exactly what they're all about to finding exactly what they're looking for, and then going and reaching out to our network of people to find the perfect person to fill that role.
So I think when people hear the word recruiting, they might have a certain image in their head, or they might have had an unfortunate experience with a past recruiter, whether they were on the candidate side or the business side. So what do you feel makes your agency different as recruiters?
On the client side, I will say we really don't work with everybody, and not necessarily because we have so much to do that we're just, pushing people away, but really we're only going to work with people who really want to work with us. Okay. And in addition to that, we also know what we don't know. And so we're not just going to take everything just to take it and to pretend that we can find that type of talent. We know we've got one shot with some clients that have never worked with us before, so we're not going to waste it on opportunities that we are just not going to be able to be successful with because we don't know the language, we don't have the network. So I would think on the client side, that's definitely the first thing. We will also not send everybody to our clients. So when we receive certain jobs, we actually will send fewer candidates that are more on target than a lot of candidates to find maybe possibly one on target. We're not looking to waste time.
Okay.
And then on the candidate side, we really try to work with them. And when we're in the middle of the process, we are there after they start a new job. A lot of our candidates have become our clients down the road. And we really work with our candidates to make sure that they're set up to succeed too, because that's really important across all levels.
Okay, so what I heard you say, Jamie, was that you guys are not going to take on a job that you don't feel that you can provide the right clients for or service in the right way. So are you guys turning away business?
We will turn away business and refer it to people who actually can fill it, because it's really important to us as well that if we refer business somewhere, it needs to be to other companies that we have fully vetted out, which we actually have some really great partnerships in that area. It's really important to us that we are a resource for our clients if we cannot help them.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Okay. Well, we're going to dive into recruiting and hiring in general, but I always like to take a little bit of a pause, try to keep it lighthearted so that we can get to know you a little bit better, because I think that that's really important. So if you're okay with it, we're going to do a little bit of a lightning round so that we can get to know you a little bit. Okay.
I love it.
So tell us where you grew up and anything you want to share about, a family dynamic or your family.
Born and raised in Los Angeles. And
Okay.
believe it or not, there's a lot of us.
I don't know. I don't believe that. I don't know if I believe that.
We all leave and then we all come back because it's a good life. It's a good life.
Okay.
So I have a very large family, and everybody has finally started to trickle back, I think, for good, which is amazing and exciting. So I was born and raised here in Los Angeles, left for college, came back, spent a lot of time in New York working on the entertainment side of the world, and knew I had to come back to Los Angeles because when I called my parents asking if they could help me for some support, they said we had a room, and I was like, that's amazing. And it was in my old bedroom that was not necessarily my old bedroom anymore. Yeah. So I ended up back in Los Angeles and have never left. But I miss the East Coast so much.
I know. When you were growing up, what did you want to be?
I wanted to be an actress or a beach bum.
True Angelino.
Yep. I was a junior lifeguard from a very early age, and I was like, I could do this, but I don't want to work for it, but I could be a beach bum. Yeah. And then I saw the show Gidget, and I was like, I could do this and be an actress and be a beach bum. And it all just kind of seemed like a really fun life, only that didn't pan out well for me. So
yeah. Is there one maybe quote or something that stuck with you that someone said to you throughout your life that keeps replaying in your head or has become a motto for, whether it's personal or business, how you live your life?
I was a competitive ice skater for most of my life. Oh. And so we had my family and only the women from my mom's side. The motto was you could feel bad and you could feel upset about your ice skating. If you're sick, if you didn't do something you were supposed to do, you get one feel bad day. And then you got to pick yourself up and change it all around.
I love that.
Nobody else can do it. You got to do it. You can pout. You can be sick. You could be sad one day. And I love it. Really, truly feel like it gives you the onus to be sad or frustrated or upset. And then you're fine.
Yeah. That's great advice. I mean, yeah, give yourself the bandwidth to be upset and then pick it up. Let's go.
And pick it up, and kind of turn the narrative around, and you're okay. And I think it helps for recruiting because, it's the ebbs and the flows and the ups and the downs, and you're dealing with a lot of different personalities. And a lot of times when somebody doesn't get a job and they're really upset, you take it to heart because they really want it, and you've been with them throughout the whole process, and you feel bad for them. Yeah. Like you really take on their excitement, you take on their disappointment and throughout the whole process. So I think that it's also a good way to look at it. Like, okay, tomorrow's going to be a new day. We'll move on from this.
Do you see companies shifting in terms of bringing awareness to things like mental health that maybe we didn't see 20 years ago? Like, talk us through that and what you're seeing companies start to do now.
Companies are actually in their offer letters, right? It's you get your PTO days, but once upon a time it went from vacation days and sick days. Then it went to the collective PTO days. And now it looks like we are in the last 6 months, we've actually seen quite a bit of it where people get their vacation days, they get their sick days, and then they get several mental health days. Okay. And that's what they're called. And that is brilliant. Mm-hmm. There's just no questions about it, and it's nice to see. I also think companies have become more realistic in their office hours, which has been really nice, and not necessarily grinding the same way we may have done so even before the pandemic, really getting what needs to be done during regular office hours. And, give or take here and there a couple hours, and depending on what season it is, it's understandable, but it's not every night, all the time.
What mistakes do you see companies make consistently?
It's interesting. There are some companies that are they really did a great job with hiring very strong people during a time where everything was very hybrid. And now that companies are going back into work and leadership may not live very close to where their offices are pushing back on that. And they're going to lose people. Senior level people who when they initially started 2 years ago were only going into the office 2 days a week, and now it's expected to go in 4. Maybe 5. And so I really see companies losing talent. So I would say we've got to be very careful when we're looking at what the schedules are and what people need. And going back on how your offer initially is very disheartening. So I think companies need to really watch out for that quite a bit. And one of the things that we have seen a great deal of is when companies don't have real expectations for candidates or new employee before they walk in the door, it never ends up to be the same experience as if they did. And it could still work out great, but it just sets everybody up for success. It gives a candidate or a new employee the opportunity to say, like, I can't do those things. Or it gives somebody the opportunity to say, I know how to do all this. I feel great. I'm good.
Can you tell if a candidate for a role would be a good remote worker, or how do you tell? What are some of those signs? Because we know that there are some that are great remote and some that might not be. So what are those signs?
We ask a lot of interpersonal questions.
Okay.
Right? Like, what would you do on your day off? If you're working remote all the time, what do are you doing laundry still, or does that happen because you're remote and you're working from home? How do you feel about being on instant messenger and Slack? So really, how is your communication style? You're communicating. Do you like to pick up the phone? Do you like to see somebody in person? Are you a texter? And all of those things really allow us to get to know the person a little bit more.
Okay. I think that most people out there understand that hiring is important. I think that is common knowledge. We understand that talent is important and hiring is important. I don't think, though, until you've had, some years of experience under your belt, you realize how hard it is to hire well. What are some tips and tricks? Because it's hard and we all need to be doing it better.
I think that there's a couple things, right? I think that everybody posts on LinkedIn or they post on ZipRecruiter, Indeed, and the job description could be very vague. So you're spending a lot of time going through resumes maybe that are not necessarily right for your role. I would say the best thing to do is give your employees a really nice bonus, right? Hey, if you refer somebody to me that has these qualities that you have worked for, we'll give you an incentive bonus, a referral bonus. I think that goes really far. And I used to hear a lot more of it. We don't hear a lot of that anymore. And I think that is one of the ways to kind of go back to hiring smart, because people like to refer good people, not bad people. And when you know that you've got a great staff, I would start there. Company culture is so important. And so finding the right candidate that will fit in that culture, those are the questions that companies don't necessarily always think about.
Okay.
And I think that could be a reason why they're not finding the right people too. And because just everybody's applying online, even if they don't match the description.
Yes. It's interesting, the different ways that people have of interviewing. And I will say one thing just personally for me. Obviously, skill set matters, but I think there's a lot of skills that are teachable or trainable. For me, when I was in office, I used to do more of character testing because I think it's harder to teach sometimes those innate character traits like work ethic or punctuality or the things that really do matter that over time, as they compound, they will get someone fired. So, I remember a boss that I had said that, he would have a crumpled piece of paper on the floor in his office, right, or, in the path, the direct path of the chair that the candidate was sitting in. And if that person picked it up and either handed it to him to throw away because they didn't know where the wastebasket was, or threw it away themselves, that was test number one.
Well, I think everything from, who makes the reservations for your group of friends when you go out to dinner?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay.
Because that shows, do you take initiative? Are you a planner? Right? When you're traveling, depending on the situation, are you the person who's deciding where to go and what to do? So you're getting to know the person without asking too many personal questions, but they are definitely giving you an insight as to what their level of organization is or excitement about something. If they're a planner, if they're if being in charge is important to them, you can start to hear different conversation pieces come out of it.
Okay, so there's some psychology behind that, but I love those questions and how you posed it. And as a caveat to everyone that's listening, it doesn't mean that you have to plan the birthday parties. There's a particular role that you would want someone who plans the birthday parties or the dinner reservations for. Not every role, but as a caveat.
No,
you're a bad candidate if you're not planning the birthday party. We get that. But
and if your whole team plans a birthday party, we don't want, everybody wants somebody who is going to just bring the dessert.
Yes. Yeah. You can't have the whole team that has the same skill set. Otherwise, you're going to have some missing puzzle pieces. So that makes sense. All right. There is a saying, and I heard this on a podcast just last week, that says, hire slow, fire fast. Do you agree with that or disagree, and why?
I had twofold.
Okay.
I definitely agree on the fire fast. I think that and I think sooner than you think and I think that the person in the role knows, which actually goes back to my initial comment where you've got to set people up with expectations.
Okay.
I think if they received all these expectations in writing day one, here's your 30, 60, 90, 360 day expectations. If they were nervous and not qualified for the job, they would never have started.
Okay.
You're not going to have a desk. You're going to have everything from like, there's no parking here. We'll Uber you home. As much as you can be specific, that sets up everybody for a greater success.
Okay.
And what we have seen is when people don't have that and they do go into a company and they've been working and people are like, well, we had a review. It's really just not working. And we're like, well, what's not working?
Exactly.
Well, it's just not working. And you're like, no. What is not working? Are they not showing up on time? Are they not answering the phone? Give us a little bit more. And 9 times out of 10, the hiring manager cannot.
Wow.
And so usually it's comes down to a personality.
Okay.
And maybe the candidate, new employee didn't have the skill sets. There's a huge possibility of that. But since it was never put out in front of them, they weren't given the opportunity to say, no, sorry. So onboarding is a very, very, very important thing. And again, if it's not working, don't drag it on, because the longer you drag it on, it also really affects the rest of the morale.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think with the higher slow, it depends on what slow is.
Okay.
And in these days, like people are interviewing and they're interviewing for really good jobs and they're not holding out. They're not waiting.
Got it.
The days of 3 months, 4 months of interviewing is really slowly starting to change because people have already been interviewing somewhere else for that long.
Got it. So you'll lose good talent if you're too slow, is what I'm hearing.
Definitely.
But what 3 traits or characteristics do you think separates good talent from great talent?
So I think it's a little bit of a hard question depending on the role, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I think good candidates can be great.
Okay.
I think that I don't necessarily know if they want to be great. Or maybe they already think they're great. I think great candidates follow through.
Okay.
They always arrive early.
Follow through. Okay.
Follow through. They always arrive early.
Ooh.
Communication is key.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people who show up, they know their interview is at 10 and at 9:45 they're still a half hour away because of traffic. But we're just finding out about it now,
Okay.
and so communication is so key. And that is definitely a huge difference in a good candidate to a great candidate. And every candidate should always make sure their resume does not have spelling mistakes on it.
Oh, okay. Yes. So I'm hearing communication. I'm hearing punctuality. I'm hearing grammar.
Grammar's important.
Okay.
Definitely. And send a thank you note.
Yeah.
So.
I can vouch for that on the thank you note. I had a boss tell me at one of the most pivotal jobs I've had in my career that really changed the trajectory of my career. I had a boss it was a year after I was on board, and I was there for about 4 years. Tell me that she almost didn't hire me because my thank you, it took me 2 days to get her a thank you. Now, the reason that it took me that time was because I was actually on an international flight. So I was flying, but in hindsight, I should have written that thank you, had it pre-scheduled to send. And she said, I hired you and I'm glad I did, but you almost lost the role because it took you more than 48 hours to send me a thank you. And that was one of her big character lessons and big caveats. So it's true. Can you talk to me a little bit about your experience with having good talent at a trade show? Because we know a trade show is a place where people will hire a lot of consultants or part-time work along with their full-time staff just to support the volume, especially at ASD, because we are a trade show where, a lot of business is done on the floor. And that is the main component of our show, is doing business. So do you think it's important to hire wisely for a trade show? Do you, tell us how you feel about hiring for a trade show?
First of all, I think trade shows are awesome. I love going to trade shows. So personally, I think it's fantastic. I think it's great to hire part-time people. A lot of the part-time people are people who only work their trade shows, which I thought was fantastic. So some of these companies aren't even going through agencies anymore. They have their own people who just work with them for trade shows, which is great because then they know whatever company they're working for. They know the product. They know exactly what's going on. And I think that has become very much the norm, where I don't think it used to be, because in the past, I know for some trade shows, a freelance agency would get 60 people to the show, and then all of a sudden only 20 would show up, so then you're scrambling, and the candidate themselves is not as bought in, right? And so I feel like it is so important to have people who you trust that will show up. But I do think it's important because I think as a customer at a trade show, coming up to a booth with somebody who is not educated on the product and doesn't look excited to be there, it's not as appealing, right, to walk up to that booth.
Yes. It is your first meeting and could be your only chance with top clients, whether they are current clients or could be future clients.
Right.
and you only get one chance. So hiring and how you hire and the people that you put on the front lines in that booth at a trade show are vital to your business. I want to pivot just a minute and talk about 2024. What are your thoughts for business, and what are you seeing in your business for 2024?
Everything that I've been reading, they expected unemployment to go down quite a bit, and it has not. Yeah. They had also expected new jobs to go down. It has not. Okay. So I think that the types of businesses are going to continue to change, and the type of qualifications that people need are going to continue to change. What exactly that's going to kind of pan out to be, I'm not exactly sure. Companies are definitely holding back in their VC funding, and I think that that's some of the areas that scare people, because that's how they really sustain their businesses. But I also think people are scaling back to have the right people instead of just a lot of people.
So switching topics really quick before we end, because I could talk to you all day long. We could go on forever. We know that. We've done beach walks that last for hours because we can't stop talking. So, but we have to wrap it up at some point. But before we go into our lightning round to end, I did want to ask, there's one very interesting thing that I see with partner recruiting, which is you have an all-female team.
We do.
Is that on purpose?
It is.
Okay, tell us more.
It has always been very important to me to give women a chance. And as we've known for such a long time, and as the world is finally talking about salaries openly, how much more men have always been compensated versus women, and now they can't necessarily do it. It was important to me to make sure, let's let women run the world. And if I can start it, with having a good time and teaching people how to recruit, then let's do it. I also, in a judgy way, feel women can multitask in a way that other people can't necessarily always do. And recruiting is always multitasking. And it's admitting to your faults too, which I also think that we do well, and saying that we forgot, because it's okay to say that, and it's okay to ask questions. And I think that also makes us really different, is that we are really comfortable asking questions in areas that we don't know, or why did you do this versus that? And somebody puts us in our place. Like we're okay, because the more educated that we are, the better we will be for our clients and for our candidates. So that was really the impetus too, is it's also a great group of women.
Yes, you do have a great group of women. Yes.
And we all really like each other. You talk about like bringing the social and crossing it over. We have that. And I feel so lucky when I don't see them for a little bit. I really miss them, like, oh my God, because like you become friends, and we all really have the passion for the same thing. And it's not just about making money, it's about doing it the right way, because karma will come around. And so why ever have to even think that way, right? We want to just always we want to sleep at night, basically.
Yes. Kudos to what you have built.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to go into a quick lightning round, because like I said, we've got to end at some point, but I want to know some fun things about you. So whatever comes to mind when I ask the question, go for it. There's no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
What is a legacy that you hope partner recruiting can leave?
I hope that we can you said it early on, where, their recruiters, headhunters have a really bad reputation, and we've experienced it, and which is one of the reasons why it's so important for us to do it with integrity as much as integrity and transparency is overused. It is exactly what is so important to us. So I hope that our legacy brings back recruiting to some type of higher appreciation, and not everybody is shady and sleazy and, trying
Yeah.
trying to pull the wool over your eyes.
I love it. What is one thing that you wish candidates when interviewing would do differently?
I wish that they would really get to know the company before they go into an interview.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. What's one thing that you wish that businesses or companies would do different when hiring?
Really take the time to speak to all the people who are going to be involved in the hiring to see exactly what they need, and they're exactly, this is my must have, this is I wish I have, this is, okay if it doesn't have. Really make those lists and make them clear.
Okay.
And be on board collectively.
Okay. A little bit more of a fun question. What's the last book you read?
Oh my God. Atlas of the Heart. I'm still reading it.
Ooh, Brene Brown. That's a great one. Okay. What's the last movie you saw?
Oh my gosh. The last movie my husband just made a movie, and it's called That's Funny. It's being released in Michigan. So that's the last movie that I saw.
Okay.
I definitely spent a lot of time watching the Beckham movie, the documentary.
Same. I just finished it. And for those that are not soccer fans, first of all, what are you doing with your life? Because it's the greatest game in the world. So you need to have a conversation with yourself on that one. But outside of that, just the sheer appreciation for someone with that amount of talent and perseverance. Oh my goodness. He never gave up. Even when they benched him, when they told him he couldn't practice with that. I mean, it is just a lesson in sheer determination.
And I loved the way that he went, even when he was benched and not allowed to practice, he showed up.
Yes. Yes.
And that's a great lesson for anybody at any age. Just show up.
Just show up. Yeah.
And it's not easy.
No.
It's easy.
So same. I binge watched that one, and it is still cried tears last episode. Absolutely. His last game with Paris Saint-Germain, just tears. So all right.
I did run into him one day with his kids. I know, at Tender Greens in Culver City, and I was looking at the cashier who I knew because I was there every day. I was like, is that him? And she's like, yes. I was like, oh my God.
I died too, because I mean, outside of being a goat in the world, period, not even of soccer, but just in life. Oh, I mean, he keeps getting better with age. It's a little unfair.
It's so unfair. It's so unfair. So anyway, so that was the one, and it's so good.
Okay. Yes. Well, I could absolutely talk about David Beckham all day, but we will move on. Our absolute last question, and then we'll wrap it up. If there is one person out there that you feel that has just done life right, in the saying comes to mind, they are winning at life, who would that be?
I've thought about that, and I feel like there's so many women in my life who are doing it right.
Oh, love that.
And it's just nice to see it.
Yeah.
We have so many friends who have gone back and, switched their careers, everything from investment banking to now, running different programs at different nonprofits to, it's so different. I think doing it right is just, they're happy.
Yeah.
And I think that you get to a certain place, and as long as you're happy, you're doing it right. And I think I'm fortunate enough that I'm surrounding myself around people who are doing it right,
Nice.
And it's important to watch these women around me do it right, because I also get to emanate that from my children too, which is nice. So there's not one person, there's many, and And everybody should just, do what they love to do, even if it's not what you thought you were going to do. You can change.
You can
Nobody,
change. I love
nobody
that.
got to do the same thing over and over again.
Thank you for being
Thank
a part of
you.
our podcast today.
Thanks for asking me.
And if we take away one thing from today, it will be keep showing up.
Yes.
So
Keep showing up.
ASD crowd out there, keep showing up. And until next time, be sure to subscribe to ASD Market Week's Let's Talk a Little Shop, a podcast that can be found on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, or Spotify. See you there.